Hello everybody, welcome back. We have a game with the white pieces against Soso Sasa, rated 1009. We're over the 1000 mark. Let's see how they respond. So black answers with c6. I think our first Caro Kann of this second speed run. We're going to put both pawns in the center, create the ideal pawn center that controls 4 very important squares on your opponent's side of the board. Okay, so black doesn't play the standard Caro Kann, which I thought he would because that's what c6 um, hints at, or telegraphs. Black goes knight f6 instead. This hits the pawn. You could develop it a number of ways, though that's a decent move. But because he doesn't have pawns in the center, you could also push forward because it's for free, right? So you could spend this turn developing, or you could push and then develop because it's free. So black moves his knight into the center, but it's undefended. It's not like he has a pawn on d5 supporting it. That's a slightly different story. It's still kind of trapped, you know, if you look at its squares. The bishop covers that one. It has no legal moves, right? So although it's a beautiful geometrical structure, the knight actually doesn't have any possibilities. And so the first thing you see is this looks a little awkward. It's on my half of the board. He's undeveloped. It's weird. What's it doing on my side of the board by itself? A little suspicious. So you may, instinctively go bishop d3, developing center with threat. It's free. That's a lot of the criteria that I talk about. That would otherwise be an amazing move. But we want to make sure, since the knight's trapped, that we win it. For example, f3, hitting the knight, winning it. So we want to make sure that if we play a developing move, right, we don't want to play knight c3 because that offers the trade. That doesn't trap it, right? So you don't want to make that mistake. So if you attack it, ideally, if you have a choice between attacking with the pawn and attacking with the piece, you want to develop and use the piece if you still win the knight. But if the piece doesn't win the knight, then you'll do f3, because even though it's weakening to the king, you win a piece. So that's an overriding factor. Okay, so the knight's here. Let's see. We develop the bishop. What can he do? Well, he may not be able to move it, but he can defend it with a pawn, right? So you have to calculate that. Let's say we go here and d5 looks like his, a try for him, something. There, luckily, we have en passant, but then the knight can take that pawn backwards, creating an escape square. That's if you put the bishop here. So you may think, oh, the knight's trapped if I attack with the bishop, but you always have to look for hidden resources. Make believe you're black. What would you try in that situation? So here, if we en passant, he escapes. So if here, then what? Well, in that situation, not only did we let him get a pawn to d5, which we otherwise wouldn't, maybe, we would en passant, but you're going to end up playing f3 anyway to win the knight. So maybe we play f3 and don't even allow the d5. So I'm going to go with f3. Now there's, defending the knight doesn't matter because you're defending it from a pawn, not a bishop. So you're just going to take it. This diagonal doesn't matter at the moment because he has no development, because he didn't move his central pawns. Even if you played the Caro Kann properly, you're still, the c6 move makes it slightly difficult for black to comfortably get his pieces out sometimes. So it's not always easy to play for new players. Sometimes their pieces get stuck trying to develop. They're stepping on each other's toes. So black moves his queen and gives me this check, which looks like it coordinates with the knight pretty nicely. However, we have many pieces touching these squares, um, but it is a check. We do have to respond. We don't want to respond in a way that lets his knight escape. So you don't want to put your knight here, here. You don't want to put your bishop here because then his knight can take it. So we have to play c3 and use the pawn. This blocks the check and keeps the knight trapped. Now he could take this, but then you simply develop and win the piece. And so basically in the first 5 moves of the game, 4 moves of the game, a 1000 rated player lost his knight, and I did not do anything special. So if you're rated 1000 or 800 or 900, you can definitely make the moves I just made. I didn't do any crazy calculation. I mean, after the game, I'll go over how simple it was, but I mean, you just have to not distract yourself. It's so easy to be distracted nowadays. If you just kind of pay attention and like, you know, focus a little bit, you'll instantly get better at chess. So black goes f6. It's a very unnatural move. I suppose he wants to try to break down the pawn chain. However, doing it from d6 makes a lot more sense. It's a central pawn that would develop a bishop, whereas his pawn move does not develop anything and actually weakens his king's diagonal. Now it's exposed. Of course, we're just going to take the knight because it's a free knight. He now takes our pawn, and like we mentioned, this is exposed, so we now have possibilities of queen h5. So we're always taking into account the drawback of our opponent's move. Once he pushes the f pawn, he weakens these 2 squares, and by association or whatever, this whole diagonal. So we could go check, and we could snatch the pawn in the middle, offering the queen trade. We could simply just develop. That's reasonable. There's no need to force a check, because he's going to go here. You're going to take, and because his rook's hanging as well, he's going to have to take. You're going to take. And I mean, you win a pawn, but you're up a knight, so you can also develop. I'm going to develop. I actually prefer this option in this position. I don't see the reason to give him the queen trade and double the pawn. So he takes this pawn, and you can't take back with the pawn because it's pinned, of course. So you could take back with the knight. It's a possibility. But the knight's already developed. The queen is not developed and is your most powerful piece, and can, most importantly, cannot be hit by knight c6. If this pawn was back and he could play knight c6, I would not take with the queen. But since that's not the case, I'm going to develop a new piece, centralize, and now he just one move threat attacks my queen. Not a big deal. It creates the drawback is it creates a giant hole here for my pieces in the future. So where do we want to go? I mean, we could go here and maybe slide in or something. You could retreat, you could go anywhere. I mean, they're all fine. This walks into some stuff. You'll get in a check, but who really cares about the check? I'm just going to keep it simple and go back home. I know it may look weird, but the queen's starting square is actually one of its best developed squares because of the amount of squares that it controls. It coordinates and keeps contact with all the other pieces. It's really good on its starting square, we'll put it that way. And all he's doing is making weaknesses. So he goes knight here. I'm running out of time. I should move faster. This controls the center. Okay. We are just going to develop. Bishop out towards the center and looking at the king, preparing castling, king safety. What else do we want to do? We want to develop our bishop somewhere. We want to develop our knight somewhere. Okay, so he goes here, opening his diagonal. No time to think. We do this most simple move. We castle for king safety, and we're staring at this square. He pins our knight, but that's not scary. Um, he probably wants to add some pressure here, but he's created lots of holes in his position. And we can get out of the pin. So I'm going to go here because this comes with a threat. Puts our queen back here. The way he played, he can no longer hit our queen like he could have if we put it here earlier in the game when his pawn was back here supporting e6 push. Now he can't push. I mean, he can push e6, but I would probably go here, and I think that's really bad for him. So he jumps his knight in, putting pressure, defending one square, hanging a pawn, but this pawn is irrelevant. It can only give him counterplay, maybe. Is that true? Rook here. I don't want to go pawn hunting, so I'm just going to ignore that. I'm not even going to calculate it because I'm running low on time. This knight is no longer pinned. Therefore, I'm going to... You could take the knight to uncover this square. You could attack that square another time, but I don't want to calculate. So I'm just going to take the knight, which is the defender of this square, which is hit 3 times. If I go there, he's going to run. Here, huh. There has to be an immediate win here. Hold on. I'm going to take this pawn so I can give the check with the bishop and reorganize my pieces. Also, I have no time. So, it seemed like it made sense. I just wanted to get it out of the way. But maybe I should have moved it like here to threaten checkmate. The thing is, I don't want to waste time calculating because I don't want to lose on time. So here, if I give this check, he can, like, I don't know. If this bishop gets off this diagonal, that would be phenomenal. It can't go here because it hangs. Can't go here, can't go here. If it has to go back, then this check forces over, and then I could finally move my rook. What's this? He hits my bishop, but now I move it out of the way with check, so it's not hanging. Again, there may be better moves. I just have no time, so I'm doing something that I know wins a piece fast. Okay, so let's just take the piece. This square is still covered by the queen because I want to put my rook here, so I'm going to maybe kick the queen so I get control over this square. If I go check, he just blocks. So we hit the queen because I don't know what his move does. It's very slow. His queen can't go anywhere but backwards, which allows the rook to come. Unless he goes all the way back, the rook will be undefended. He does go all the way back, the rook is undefended. So let me add some new threats. I don't know, just develop a piece so I can connect the rooks. He just takes a pawn, but that can't be good. And now I just develop, make some more threats, and now I have access to this square. His queen's not threatening anything. Although it probably felt good to win a pawn near the king. I definitely had such cool wins before. I just panicked because when I knew I was winning a piece on like move 5, I decided to just take a lot of time explaining stuff. I didn't think about the rest of the game. Okay. Either way, I think we're good with 30 seconds. I mean, we don't even need the knight. I was just kind of getting it out of the way so I can connect the rooks. I don't know what that was. He writes, oh, he was writing to me, am I here? And this is just a checkmate down the center of the board because I have 1,000 pieces here. Yeah, I told you we don't need the knight. I was just getting it out of the way. And he gets checkmated in the center. Whew. 28 seconds left. we managed. So to go to go through it, we have a center move that develops. We have a center move that develops. And now we have a center move that's free. Free move. We like free moves. Having a pawn on e5 is very often the start of an attacking game, because this pawn kicks away this knight, and this knight is the best defender of a castled king. Okay, so that applies to many positions and many openings. As soon as you see this move, you should feel like something's wrong, even if you don't know what. You know, if you see him go back home, the feeling you should get is, oh, he's wasted this time, we get free moves. You should feel good. But when you see it go here, you should get a different feeling, like a different type of, this is a different bad move. This move looks suspicious, right? A different thing. If he goes here, that should look like bad, as in, oh yeah, you can kick it and he'll just have to waste time running around. You get some free moves, but not so much trapped. Like, those are the feelings you should get, right? So he goes in here, I get a feeling, so then I start looking for moves to see if it's trapped. I showed you what happens with the bishop. We don't want to have to deal with that, so we just kick it, center, forcing move, free stuff, and the game is over. But you still have to pay attention, because you still don't want to put a piece on these squares, so you have to play this move. Free stuff, development, center. Again, the queen check line is also winning. Center, development. Again, here you do not have to go back home, but like I said, home is a good square, especially if you have moved the c pawn, so it has access to this diagonal, especially if it has access here should the knight move, especially if the entire d file is open like it is. It's extremely powerful on the d1 square. And I was showing you, if it goes to, let's say, queen d5, it may get kicked around. Yeah, maybe you have other options, but then you have to calculate, make sure your queen is fine. We don't want to do that. We go to a very powerful coordinating square. The queen is a coordinating queen. She loves to coordinate. She's an event planning queen. Knight c6, actually I don't care what he's doing. I'm just developing towards the center. And now this also has to do with king safety, because there's no pawn here, which is very important, because it weakens these two squares. And now at castle, king safety, but because there's no f pawn, it's also development and against his king safety. So it's a very powerful move, because it does so much. The development's so good here. His king is weak. We see that we're pinned. We see what he's trying to do. We get out of the way. Development, center, and his king is looking worse and worse. And then immediately, this has to be bad blunder. So we just take it. We win a pawn. There's definitely other moves there. There's definitely other moves here. So the game is won. We already won an up piece. And now I'm just converting. Is there anything else worth mentioning? I would say for all of you players, if you're in this position and you see this pawn, queen takes g4, you have to understand that that's a terrible move. You have to see how trapped and bad your king is. You have to see this open file. You have to see my rook. You have to see the fact that these guys are 8 points of material that don't exist. Like, you have to know that if you take this pawn, terrible things are going to happen to you, even if you can't calculate or you don't exactly know what. Like, you have to get that sensation. So you would never even consider taking this. All right, you need to find a way to get your king safe, to develop your bishop, to do something, not go take this g pawn. That's insane. Now, if this g2 pawn wasn't here and it came with check, and maybe your idea was to take and then go right back, I mean, it's still bad and waste of time, but at least the check, there's some more sense. Still kind of bad though. So now we just develop, we have unstoppable piece development. Our pieces are just slicing through the entire board all over the place, and his pieces are literally doing nothing. Absolutely nothing. That's funny. Yeah, and then checkmate. I mean, what move is this? 21. You cannot be on move 21 of the game and have your king on d8 unless the position is entirely locked center-wise. Unless there's 4 pawns here, nothing, interlocked, can't move, Tetris style, then maybe you can have your king in the center for a long time. But if there are pawns missing here, like there's only 1 here instead of 4, you better get your king out the way. This is traffic. This rook is a truck. The king, pedestrian. Okay. Alright. Hopefully this helps. Good luck in your chess games. Submit your rapid games in my Discord, and I will review them for you for free and for fun. Goodbye.